Daniel, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for LangChain for JavaScript developers, how to integrate LLMs into JavaScript web apps. I was wondering if you could take a moment just to talk a little bit about who you are and about what this book is about and who it's for.
Hello. My name is Daniel Nastase. I'm a developer. Currently, I'm based in Bucharest, Romania, and I've been doing web development for close to 18 years now, close to that. And how the book came to be, there were two main forces that interacted in the creation of the book. First of all, for me, education was always part of my job. I mean, I enjoy teaching. I think education actually makes humans better, and we are getting the world a bit in a better shape by educating ourselves and the others. And also, it's an egoistic thing in my education endeavors, in the idea that I always used education as a tool for myself to learn. I don't know why, for me, I always need to produce something at the end of my learning process. I cannot learn just for the sake of learning. I have to reach an objective and usually this is some sort of a course or a book or something like that. And this is the first part. The second, how the book came to exist was, I think, 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago, when a friend of mine, I remember we were watching a football match, and he showed me ChatGPT, and I said, like, "Whoa, this is real." I mean, initially I thought, yeah, it's another. I don't know, some shiny toy, but the more I interacted with it, I was like, okay, this is something here, and I felt how I mean, I felt for the first time in many years how I first felt when I started doing programming. I didn't know how that thing was working. I mean, for sure, it was beyond if then else and for loops, though. That I knew, and started to delve into this. Started at one point I was between contracts, between jobs, and I think I had like something like 2 months, and doing that time I said, okay, I will understand AI in only 2 months in my head, and it started soon. My brain starting to implode. I mean, it was something like I was learning about architecture of neural networks, gradient descent, data training, all kinds of, and it was, I couldn't bear it. I mean, it was a lot of info, was kind of fun, but also, I mean, I think in the peak of my learning, I was able to create a JavaScript neural network from scratch that was able to recognize some basic shapes. If I would draw like some digits on a canvas, on a HTML5 canvas, but that was after way a lot of learning and failing and so on. And I at one point I decided, okay, I will put this thing on a hold, because first of all it started to get a bit too much, and it was not clear in my head that this is a completely different job, completely different, and also the resources. I was just picking information, but pieces of information from a different point. And I came back to my normal web developer job, but I was always like lurking around the subject. And I was lucky. I don't know if you know the Latent Space podcast. It's one of the leading podcasts in. I think the term AI engineer was coined by Swix, one of the founders of this podcast. And while I was looking, I was listening to those episodes. At one point, I know a guest said something like, look, we need to deal with something like, we need to stream data from one LLM to the real web application. And I said, okay, this sounds interesting, sounds as a problem that I could approach with my web knowledge, with my JavaScript knowledge. But on the other side, it's also related to AI. And from that, like this whole field of AI engineering. And I think a better name for this should be AI integration engineering. Because you're not engineering AI, you are mostly engineering the integration between a web app and LLM with all of the challenges and so on. And very soon after that, I discovered LangChain. And I know that it's tapped into my head. The fact that first I heard about it was something like the jQuery for LLM integration, and I said, cool, jQuery. I have really nice memories about jQuery, and I started from that. And also, I was super happy about the fact that LangChain had JavaScript implementation. In this world of AI, 99% is Python. And yeah, I love Python, super nice language, super cool syntax and so on. But I'm in the end, I'm a JavaScript developer. I know much more, and I feel much more comfortable with JavaScript. And this is how it started. And with these two horses, so I've started to said, okay, I will make a book about this and learn why I'll make this book. And ended up with like version of one of the book, first version of the book, and it's made of 5 examples and split it into 6 chapters. One example goes in 2 chapters, and each chapter deals with the particularity of LLMs and how we can integrate them into web applications. Because LLMs are strange things. They are not like the normal programming that someone like me is used with. For example, they can hallucinate their output. It's completely unstructured. So at one point, you'll get an answer. You may get an answer like Paris is the capital of France. And one call later, you'll get an answer like France has its capital in Paris. So it's not, you on the same input, you can get different outputs. And for someone that comes from a deterministic programming background like myself, it's strange, I mean. And yeah, we have to deal, they don't have memory, or something that actually is true. I mean, they are stateless, and it's up to us as software developers to provide a memory management system for the LLM. And this was my solution to the new AI. I mean, to the new AI wave. I said, okay, I'm not smart enough to build my own AI, and most likely I shouldn't be. But on the other side, I am trying to be my best in integrating these features and thinking about how we should, what is the best approach for them to be a part of our web applications. And this is it in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks very much for that really great explanation. I always love hearing the origin stories of books like that. And in particular, a lot of Leanpub books are books by people who are like, this is what I learned. I don't want to just leave it there in my mind. I want to put it out there. It'll help me to get it out there in the world and put it together in a one package, but it'll also help everybody else. And I think your book is very good for anyone listening who's not a programmer and who's wondering about all this stuff. The book is actually very good at explaining to you the nature of these LLMs, why they're different from the things that most programmers are used to talking to, as they'll say. So if you, that explanation of like getting a different answer, for example, that would like blow a programmer's mind in the past, right? Like, how do I handle that? Because when I'm dealing with a person, sure, they might give me 2 different answers when I ask them the same question. But when I ask a database a question, I expect the same answer back every time. In fact, I need it. If I can't, and so there's other challenges like that with these LLMs. Like, for example, they're stateless. They might not remember where they were 5 minutes ago or what they did 5 and correct things like that. And so building these they
aren't as smart as as we are led to believe.
I mean, on that note, my joke is that they've already achieved human intelligence, and it's the hallucinations that's proof.
Good point.
But in any case, actually, one thing I wanted to mention. So it's just a curious coincidence that just earlier today I was interviewing another Leanpub author, and we talked about how that experience they had when they got their dad brought a sort of used computer home, and they spent weeks just trying to get it work, and just the magical experience of your first time programming and getting things to work. And we did the comparison. Like, I bet you there's a lot of people out there for whom AI is the same thing.
Exactly. Fun stuff. This is exactly how I started to learn programming. My dad brought home a very old computer, and he didn't have any permanent storage. You couldn't, back then you were saving data on cassettes, like audio cassettes, and that thing was broken, and I had to type all the time the same code in order to get, it was the basic, the basic programming language. And I had to type over and over the same code in order to get a small game. And I type it so much that I started to understand it. So this is how it starts.
Oh, that's really great. That's really great. And it is really magical. Another sort of funny coincidence was, so my first experience using ChatGPT was I have a group of friends and we do a trivia night every Wednesday, and it was my turn to host. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use, the first thing I did was use ChatGPT to make a trivia quiz. And that's one of the examples that you use
exactly
in the book,
exactly.
which is really amazing. And it's so great to see the actual prompts and the way they fit in the code and things like that. So for anyone interested in how, even if you're not like a technical person or you're not in software, but especially if you are, this book is a really great introduction with great details and actual sort of practical projects that you can do in a manageable amount of time to actually learn how these things work. The book is LangChain for JavaScript developers, How to Integrate LLMs into JavaScript Web Apps. Thank you very much, Daniel, for taking some time out of your morning to talk to me and to talk to all of us about your great book.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks. It was a pleasure.